into the decision to go with Jude last week?
Yeah, a couple things. I think Koo obviously is a very accomplished kicker, and there's still like an acclimation period where that guy has to get used to the operation of snap and hold, obviously. And the more time on task, I think that transition could happen for him. I think Jude, just obviously having been here, understood the operation time a little bit more, and we just felt like he gave us the best chance to win that week.
Is that still a week-to-week thing for you at this point?
Yeah, absolutely. I think although Jude did a really nice job for us and excelled with everything we were asking him to do, I think ultimately, you still treat that like a competition, and every week is a new week, and we'll take a common sense approach as we have more discussions as a coaching staff later in the week.
With Deontay, what did you see from him just as a return man?
Tay is obviously a gifted athlete. He has the elite top-end speed. He has the frame that you'd want in a returner. And he showed us that he has good ball skills. The ability to have good catch mechanics is always number one priority for me as a returner. The second thing, when the run skill shows up and the frame shows up and the speed shows up, you're like, okay, this guy has a chance to do it. And, he's done it before in his career of just playing football. He showed us a lot of promise throughout training camp through these past few weeks, and it was cool to see him get a couple explosives last week. He was fired up to do it, and there's also something to be said about a player that genuinely wants to be back there and do it. And he's well-liked by his teammates, so there's something to be said about the guys wanting to block for him as well. So it was cool to give that guy an opportunity and cool to see him have success.
Did he approach you guys about that, or is that something that you guys went to him about?
A combination of both. It was probably a few months ago, our returners were catching off the jugs machine. And, he kind of came up to me. He's like, I could do that. And I said, don't tempt me right there, because obviously he has the skill set to do it. And then he was back there just catching it very free and easy. And I was like, okay, let's start working with him a little bit more. And that's something obviously he had a lot of success with on Sunday.
You've had a different guy back there next to Gunner each week. What has it been like rotating that? And do you think he could be the answer there?
Potentially. Every week is a new week in terms of what players we're able to use in that phase, just because it deals with what we're doing offensively and defensively as well. It's a credit to the team, number one. Those guys have understood conceptually what we're asking that specific position to do. So whenever you see returner by committee and each of those guys show the ability to do it, you're like, okay, these guys are starting to understand the scheme. They're starting to understand how blocks develop. And it was really cool to see in that frame. So, we'll have more conversations at the end of the week, but, Tay is definitely a guy that, could do it at a high level for a long time.
I don't know if we'll get a chance to talk to you next week because it's a short week, but have you been watching the Eagles blocks and how much is that on your mind? The back of your mind, at least.
No, to be honest, my focus is always one day at a time, 1 week at a time. So we have a great challenge ahead of us this week. Playing in the Superdome, and the Saints historically have played good special teams at a high level for a long time. So we got to make sure that we're locked into this week, this opponent, and right now, because they have a dangerous returner back there in Rashid Shaheed. They have a lot of good core players that play their tails off and have production. They pressured kicks well. They blocked a ton of kicks. So really our focus is on excelling versus the Saints and handling our business in that frame.
What was the conversation like when you had the fourth down to get there 40, so it was a 58-yarder on Sunday? Obviously you punted, but was there any talk about trying to field goal there?
Yeah, we always have discussions as coaches throughout the game just in terms of situation. And like I've said before, it kind of deals with, how we're playing defensively, how we're playing offensively. Field position was a premium that game. So whether we punted on a short field or whether we wanted to attempt a field goal, that just dealt with the score differential and the flow of the game. And it was cool to see, our guys make a couple plays and obviously bounce back after they made a couple plays as well.
How much more difficult it is when, I think it's kind of obvious, but you have to punt from your heels on the end line like that. What does that change obviously for Jamie, but operationally?
Yeah, number one, it's quicker because the spacing is a little bit tighter, so the snap gets to the punter quicker. And obviously protection is a premium back there because you don't have as much space. So the ability to speed up in those cases. And then Jamie, I mean, I can't say enough good things about how he punted his tail off last Sunday. And that specific punt will always stick out in my mind because he was able to flip the field. You talk about creating a game-changing play. I really feel that was one. And then to see our coverage unit, cover with ultimate effort and technique and spreading the field, and those guys put that whole play together, which was a long-lasting play. So it was cool to see all those guys execute, and a credit to Jamie of punting it well in that situation.
Manhurst is kind of a big guy. He made that last tackle on that last punt that pinned him back. I guess how impressive is that?
Very impressive. Yeah, very impressive. Obviously everybody respects his physicality, the way he approaches the game. He's a super smart football player. And the cool thing about him, because he's played so long in this league, I truly believe that he understands he doesn't have to go and reach for plays. He just has to be in position. And when he's in position to make the plays that he's supposed to make, he shows up and he does it. And he made a hell of a play tackling that returner in that regard.
Why do you think your coverage units have been playing well so far?
Couple reasons. I think it starts with the kickers, placing the ball correctly, but also there's a mentality that our guys have started to embody. Understanding that this is the first play of defense, whether it be on punt or kickoff. And every week is a new week. Like the success that we've had the past few weeks in terms of our coverage phases is not necessarily indicative of what we're going to do the next game. And I think the way that our guys have approached every week, how it's been a neck snap and clear mentality, they flourish for the opportunity to be out there again. And it's really cool to be in the huddle right before they take the field, because you see the level of concentration, you see the level of intensity those guys have, and a genuine appreciation for their teammates, because they want to do their job so the other person next to them can do their job as well. And if that returner goes to their spot, they're ready to do it. If the returner goes somewhere else, it's a byproduct of what that other teammate did. So like I said, we got to continue to work. Yes, there's been some successful plays that we've had, but every week is a new week, and we got to show up today and have a great day of practice.
Kobe, Jude hit a couple of touchbacks last week. Was that part of the plan, or is that, a young kicker still working to develop his placement?
Yeah, the hard thing about that kickoff is you definitely don't want to kick it short. And when you err, sometimes you err with a little bit of adrenaline kicking it a little deep. And that's just the nature of this rule, is when you're trying to put it in place, sometimes they'll carry a little bit deeper and go in the end zone, and it's credit to their returners to making the smart decision and taking a knee. But there are times that we'll kick touchbacks as well. So, the biggest thing for him is just understanding how those two differentiate, and when we kick a touchback, to be able to kick it out the back, and then when we put it in play, to be able to put it in play. But that's something that every kicker in this league is going to have to continue to work on.